Please enter your conference number followed by the pound key.
You are joining a live conference already in progress. If you would like to ask the speaker a question, please press 0.
Letter while we have you. We do want to take just another minute or so to give everyone the chance to hop on the call. So let me share once more here how you can participate as more of your neighbors join us. Congresswoman Nancy Mace is standing by, and she's ready to take your questions after some opening remarks. Just be sure to press 0 on your phone keypad to get your question submitted. Again, you can do so right now or at any time throughout the forum. And if you would rather not bring your question live, just let your operator know that you would prefer us to read that over the air instead. Of course, we would love to hear your voice. However, either way, be sure that you're still pressing 0 on your phone keypad to ask a question. Now, don't miss the opportunity tonight to also press 7 if you would like to provide us with your email address so that we can link you directly to the Reps e-newsletter after the call is over. We've made that so easy for you. So remember, that's pressing 0 to get your questions in line, also pressing 7 to register for those future email updates. Now, thank you again, everyone, for joining us here tonight. And we're seeing such a great audience already. So to officially get us started, it's my pleasure to hand it right over to Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Very excited and honored to be on with you tonight. We would normally do some of these in person, but we're doing our first town hall of the year as a telephone town hall because of the number of threats that our office has been receiving lately. We have people showing up frequently at our office and lots of death threats. But I get to talk to more of you and take more questions this evening than I ever have. And first of all, I want to give you guys and gals an update on what we've been doing in Congress. I also want to talk about the latest news, things that affect our district, and of course, I will take any and all questions about Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, I've been working double time on that issue because I think it's representative of a larger cultural issue of folks who are criminals and doing many wrong things and never going to jail because of an issue we have with judges who've been on the bench too long, et cetera. At any rate, so I want to start there. I want to talk about first, I sit on 3 different committees. I sit on the House Armed Services Committee, the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and the House Oversight Committee. I am on 9 different subcommittees. And so when I'm in Washington and we're in session, I often have 1 or more subcommittees or full committees going on at the same time, in and out of committee hearings. I also chair my own subcommittee on the House Oversight Committee on Cybersecurity and technology. We do a lot of work on AI. My most recent hearing on the subcommittee on cybersecurity was about child predators, where there was one case they were showing me about the technology that targets children. One person who hasn't been investigated yet in South Carolina having something like 75,000 images. Really scary stuff. And I think, you're either on the side of children or you're on the side against the children. And I know that, our children and grandchildren, they're watching, and we got to show them what we're made of and why so many of us are so passionate about that issue. On the House Armed Services Committee, on the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, this session I was able to get approximately $400 million authorized for the 1st Congressional District to include monies for Joint Base Charleston, all the bases that we have here for our military. I also was able to get $30.4 million authorized for a new Veterans Affairs clinic in Beaufort. As many of you know, if you're a Marine, once a Marine, always Marine, but when you retire from the Marine Corps, many of you come back to Beaufort and the surrounding area because it's majestic and beautiful, but that's where you got started. And we are so honored to have you in the Low Country, and we want to make sure you're getting all the care that you can. I have so far in the last 2 years accumulated and was able to get appropriated approximately $400 million for the district and infrastructure. That includes the largest state infrastructure grant in South Carolina history with SCDOT. That was Long Point Road, and that was approximately $195 million in a grant. I will tell you, I am extremely proud of the grant work that we're doing. And if you are at an organization or at an agency or government agency looking for federal funding that's been appropriated, please call our office. We have a magical team of folks that are working on grant funding, and I think that we run circles around so many other offices, and it's been amazing, the work that we've done there. We have, in terms of grant funding, we got a grant for $1.2 million, an infrastructure grant for Moncks Corner Transportation recently. Hilton Head Island Airport, this is a recent one, we've gotten over $20 million for Hilton Head Island Airport, but we recently were able to get $300,000 for air traffic controller grant. That was awarded recently, City of Charleston. Safe Streets for All U.S. DOT infrastructure grant was $140K. Over the last couple of years, we were able to get over $2 million for local law enforcement projects to include Berkeley County. Recently, a $500,000 grant to hire 3 law enforcement officers to cover a 3-year period to assist with illegal firearm possession and illegal firearm crimes. Dorchester County recently helped assist get a $25 million build grant. Again, transportation, infrastructure, roads, and bridges. We also assisted and supported getting a Low Country Rapid Transit grant, and so we often argue over the amount of money the government is going to spend, but once the money is spent and it's appropriated, your tax dollars are equal to anyone else's in any other state, including Florida, Texas, and New York, and California, and I want to make sure that we are getting as many resources as we can down here. As you all know, given the traffic that we all sit in every day, we are the fastest growing state in the country by population, and that comes, it's great for our real estate, but it's really bad for traffic. And so we've had a strong focus on roads and bridges, grant funding. My team just sent me a note. We just recently got a $24 million grant in Dorchester County for congestion, so to build out bridges and sidewalks. We recently secured the City of Hanahan Police Department grant for officer safety. We talked about rapid transit. That Low Country grant was $26 million. And so some pretty great returns and ROI on grants. You want to press 7 if you want to join our newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes out by our team every weekend. You can see all the bills we're filing over the last year or so. I have filed over 70 bills now. I am ranked number 8 out of 435 members of Congress for the number of bills that I file. I am a prolific drafter of legislation. I recently, just last week, had 2 bills passed out of the House Oversight Committee, mostly related to job creation, one of those being that you don't need a 4-year college degree for jobs that you would ordinarily qualify for with your skill set and any contracts with the federal government or with the federal government. I expect those bills will come before the U.S. House of Representatives to be voted on in a suspension vote as early as next Monday. We believe it'll be sometime next week that we're going to be doing that. Some of the constituent work that we've done doesn't get enough, we don't brag about it enough, but if you need help with a federal agency, an IRS tax refund, getting a passport, you name it, if it's a federal agency, we can assist you, even if you need an appointment at the VA. So some work that my caseworkers have had some recent successes on. This first one is wild. They assisted a constituent who had a delayed 2024 tax return. The tax return was slowed because of the shutdown last fall. And because of our offices, the constituent called the office. We have 3 caseworkers on staff that work full-time on these cases, but our office pushed to get them the refund, and holy cow, the refund was $342,000. I want that job. I don't know what job that was where you get that kind of refund, but that's pretty amazing. They also assisted a family whose son went to college, and they did not think that they qualified for a post-9/11 GI Bill. Turns out the son did qualify, and our office assisted getting back pay or paid back the tuition for this student to the tune of $88,000. So that's something else we can assist your family with. And this is one of the sweetest stories that my staff told me about. Again, they're telling me to press 0 if you want to talk. Oh, if you want to ask a question, press 0. Press 7 to sign up for our newsletter. Recently, there was a grandma whose family called the office. She was 93 years old, and they were going to go on her first and probably final cruise, I would imagine, happily and sadly at the same time. as a family, and she needed a passport, and she didn't have a copy of her birth certificate. So we expedited the request to get her birth certificate, and we got it within a week, and she was able to get her passport, and she made it on her very first cruise. I hope it's not her last, but what a touching and remarkable story, really great story of the work that our office is doing in the community. One of the other things that before we get into Epstein, I did want to talk about, many of you know that just over a year ago I told my story on the House floor, and in doing so, we have had so many constituents come forward who feel like the justice system is broken. They feel ignored. They feel a huge weight of injustice. They feel trauma. They have lost hope. And we have just accumulated and come across so many cases. And I think it's one of the reasons why you see so much passion when I talk about the injustice system, why I propose ways for us to fix it. And it's not a partisan issue. This is a human issue. About a week and a half ago, my office got a call. I was here. We were not in session that day, but we got a call from someone in Berkeley County, and their son was stabbed to death in 2017. Jacoba Crabtree was disabled. He was in a wheelchair. He was wheelchair bound and was stabbed like 14 times in the back or something, and he died. Obviously, he couldn't protect himself, and he was murdered. And this was in 2017. It's now 2026. And do you think the person who stabbed him to death has ever been prosecuted? The answer is no. And it's case after case after case. I went up to Myrtle Beach yesterday, and I sat in the first day of the hearing of Scott Spivey, who was shot in the back, chased down the road, shot in the back and died with a bullet in his back. And the state refuses to investigate that. And I got a word on Monday night that the judge has already made his decision and it's already been, rigged. I hope that's not the case, but it's just case after case. And it doesn't matter if it could be a child assault, it could be solicitation of a minor, it could be murder. Look at the case of Logan Federico, where South Carolina judges let this guy out who was violent over and over and over and over again until he executed a 22-year-old girl in Columbia, South Carolina. There's a case of Donald Gresh in Charleston County, who was arrested a few years ago, and he was caught with 1,900 images of kids as young as toddlers, as young as 3, being assaulted by animals. I kid you not. He was facing 60 years in prison. Under South Carolina's system of injustice, he served 1 day being a convicted pedophile. There was a group of moms in Mount Pleasant that I did a press conference with a couple weeks ago. I had over 24 moms at this press conference. And it was about a convicted pedophile in Mount Pleasant who was convicted in November, and 11 days later he was violating his probation. And his probation stated, and the terms of his bond and bail stated, were that if he violated his probation, he would go to jail. So they arrested him. He was out the same day. So I had this press conference with these moms because this individual, allegedly, Travis Reed Gray, lives near children, lives near a school, lives near a church, lives near a playground, may be violating the terms of the probation because of where he lives, being so close to those locations, that I held up his picture at the news conference. All the press was there, local press, and only one media outlet covered it. Only one. The rest of them ignored it, and there was almost like a media blackout. I don't know who did that. I don't know who called and told them not to cover the story, but I will tell you, a young woman, teenager, saw the press conference and saw me show the convicted pedophile's image in his photo on Instagram, and called the police the same day and filed a police report, because it come to find out, allegedly, Travis Reed Gay was following this child around at a park 1 week earlier. So imagine my frustration and some of my anger at how many children would have come forward had they seen his picture that they will never see. How many more police reports could we get if this story were taken seriously? If criminals and pedophiles were put in jail, how many children we could save. And so it's something that I'm deeply passionate about, protecting our children, and that is a good segue into Epstein, which is going to go down as the biggest cover-up in American history. I believe one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. Press 0 to ask a question. Press 7 to sign up for our newsletter so you can see everything that I'm doing. In terms of Epstein in the fall, or I think maybe even towards the end of last summer, was it maybe in August when I signed the Epstein petition? That's when we voted on it in November. But I signed the Epstein petition when it came out. Again, when it comes to the topic of abuse of women and children, it's something I'm deeply passionate about as a survivor. And I was one of 4 brave Republicans that signed the discharge petition to release the files. In November, we had the vote when we got 200 to 218 signatures on the discharge petition, and the DOJ has been releasing those files. I have been okay with the pace of the file release. I didn't want to rush anything because I wanted to ensure the names of the victims were redacted. Turns out the names of the victims were not redacted in some cases, whereas the names of the potential co-conspirators and predators and those that solicited minor, et cetera, were redacted. Even today, right now, after going to the Department of Justice and looking at, quote, unredacted files, the files that I want to see discussing co-conspirators in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring, they are either not in the database or those files are redacted. They are still hiding those names. The DOJ last weekend came out with a memo to say all the files have been released. That is not true. There must be millions of more files. They only released over 2,000 video files in this, quote, full release. It cannot be humanly, physically possible. Jeffrey Epstein had hundreds of cameras. They were in every room of every property. They were in the planes, audio and video. And I want to know where the tapes are. There are emails with investigators going back and forth talking about terabytes after terabytes, 20, 30 terabytes of video and audio data. Where is that? Why hasn't it been released, and who's covering it up? And this isn't about the current administration. This goes back more than 20 years. This was under the Biden administration. This was under the Obama administration. This was under the Bush administration. And so you're going to see me over the next couple of, I hope it's days, not weeks. I'm trying to be very judicious. I don't want to reveal any victims' names or identities, but I want you to know there were women that were selling women and girls, underage girls, to Epstein. And I'm going to name the women that I have uncovered and discovered that did that. And I'm going to bring people in, whether they were witnesses, whether they were co-conspirators, whether they were participants, whether they just might know information, or whether they did the bad deal with Epstein and he walked free, basically, for what he's done. I have sent a letter to the DOJ about documents that they put up on the website and then took down. I want to know why. I have sent a letter to the Southern District of New York and asked about the files they say are redacted, because I want the files unredacted. I've sent a letter to the CIA yesterday because I believe, based on information that I have uncovered, that the CIA is in possession of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. I want all copies of his passports and all pseudonyms and all that information as well. And you'll see more of that very soon because this stuff trickles down. And I have seen judges in our state let criminals that are violent walk free, let pedophiles walk free for a day in jail. It's not just Travis Reed Gay. It's not just Donald Grash. There are a lot of them. I've seen prosecutors, plead everything down. I've seen them plead pedophile cases down to just simple assault so their names don't go on the sex offender registry. So, leadership starts at the top, and we've got to show children, because they're watching, we have to show them what we're made of, and that we're going to do everything we can to protect them so that when cases come up in courts in South Carolina, people know you're not going to get away with this. So with that, I'm going to take questions. So let's go.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. And again, if you have a question for Congresswoman Nancy Mace, don't hesitate. Go ahead, press 0 right now on your phone keypad. Now, first up tonight, Congresswoman, I know you were just talking about the Epstein files. We have Travis with us in Johns Island. Travis, looks like you had a question regarding that topic. So you're live with us. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And Congresswoman, thank you for doing this. And I want to thank you for
Mm-hmm.
your courage in signing the discharge petition, and being one of the few Republicans that did that. That certainly took a lot of courage. My question is, now that the files have come out, or some of them have come out, we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
some really troubling things in them from this administration and allies from this administration. I think real courage would be, speaking out against the people in your own party and this administration. So I'm curious what you have to say about Howard Lutnick, who went to the island
Mm-hmm.
after he said he didn't, Elon Musk,
Mm-hmm.
who begged to go to the parties, and yes, Donald Trump, who's in it 38,000 times. You're tough on Bill Clinton. My question is, will you have the courage to stand up to your own party and say the truth?
Yeah, I've been tough on everybody. In fact, just because this, for full awareness, and I was just looking at my staff, when I signed the discharge petition, I think it was I need to fact check this, August of last year, somebody anonymously emailed the FBI and threw my name in the files, and did the same thing to Ron DeSantis. So that's why I'm being judicious with where I go with this. But when you see me discuss the names of the people in the files that I want to bring forward to the Oversight Committee, it will be both Democrats and Republicans alike. It will not be a partisan list. I have answered questions about Howard Lutnick. I am a mom. I do know that he admitted to not telling the truth and visiting the island with his children with a convicted pedophile. And for me as a mom, I have stated publicly I would not go to Pedophile Island, and I certainly wouldn't do it with my kids to hang out with a convicted pedophile. That's not illegal, but that certainly is a thing that I personally would not do, and it would expect everyone to question my judgment for doing so. I've been just as hard on him as I have been on the Clintons. I am going to depose the Clintons. I guess that's next week on the 26th and the 27th. Hillary Clinton said in an interview yesterday with the BBC that they had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, yet there are photos of Bill Clinton in a hot tub with a woman whose face is redacted. So that's just not, it's just not true. And then you saw Ghislaine Maxwell at the Chelsea Clinton's wedding, on the aisle, so it has to be a thing that is nonpartisan. You will see names of people that are affiliated with the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. Up until recently, I was the only person in Congress out of 435 members who had voted to hold people of both parties in contempt when they didn't show up for a subpoena to testify before Congress. And so it is something I take seriously. I do it to the detriment of my own personal liability and my professional career, to my professional detriment, because it's too important to me to ensure that the truth gets out there. And to say about what I want to say about Donald Trump is that he's exonerated. I have talked to victims who have exonerated the president. He's not been in any way, shape, or form implicated. Just as I have not been implicated in the files, even though last year when I signed the discharge petition, somehow my name ended up in the files. It's absurd. But, it's something that has to be taken seriously. And it's, I do question how far back this goes and why. I mean, this started under the Bush administration, but then it was covered up under the Obama and Biden administration. So I think it's because there are a lot of powerful people that were involved, and I think that information is still being hidden from us. We've only, as I said, gotten a fraction of the files that I believe are available and that exist. And I will be getting to the bottom of it. In my letter to the DOJ, my letter was addressed to Pam Bondi, who is a Republican. So I did not mince words, and I said I would go to the mat for every single victim. Rapists and child predators don't see political party or affiliation, and neither should we when it comes to protecting children.
Thank you so much, Travis. And we're going to get to another question here from Teresa in Goose Creek. Looks like, Teresa, you have a question.
My hometown.
Services for your dad. Absolutely, yes. Welcome, Teresa. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Hi, thank you. My question is this. My father was in the Marine Corps for 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Vietnam and everything, Okinawa and everything like that. And him and Mom, they had 8 kids, so they raised 8 kids in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, they had taken half of my father's pay. He's 89 years old. He's widowed now. and they taken half his pay, telling him he wasn't in the Vietnam, he wasn't at Vietnam, and he does, you know, and back then there was a fire, so a lot of the files got burned, but he does have pictures. What can we do to get his pay coming back? You know, they can't hit and just say, well, you have no proof you were in Vietnam. You lied. But he does.
No, and there were files that were burned, and that's correct. So what we will do is I'm going to ask you when you hop off the call while we're on the call, press 0 so that we can get your full name and contact information. We're going to, the office number is 843-352-7572. So anyone on the call that has a question or need help with a federal agency, it's 843-352-7572. But if you want to press 0 so that we can get your full name and your contact information, email, phone number, and your father's information, we will get you set up with one of our caseworkers to open up a case file and start working it with the VA to get your father the benefits he deserves. Our soldiers, men and women, put their life on the line. They sacrificed everything for our freedom and for freedom of others around the world, and we must take care of them, and we will do everything we can to expedite that process for you and your family.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And I want to give another reminder. If you want to get in line with a question as well, just like Travis did, just like Teresa did, you can still press 0. We still have time to take your questions. I also want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, press 7 on your phone keypad. Provide an operator with your email address to receive updates moving forward from the Congresswoman's office. Again, this is one of the best ways that you're going to be able to stay current, see everything that she is doing for you, and I can see many of your neighbors are taking advantage of this option. So again, go ahead, press 7 right now to sign up for the Reps e-newsletter. You're not going to want to miss out there. But let's go ahead and get right back to questions here. Up next, Anne with us in Ladies Island. Anne, thank you so much for joining our call. Please go ahead with your question on the SAVE Act.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this town hall, and thank you so much for your.
And I am so sorry your line's a little mumbled. I'm going to read your question. She's asking, please explain the SAVE Act. I haven't been able to find clear information on it.
Okay, the SAVE Act just passed out of the House. It's now in the U.S. Senate. And so the SAVE Act would require only U.S. citizens vote in U.S. elections at the federal level. So the way elections work, they're generally managed by the state. So everyone does their elections differently. In some states, they have mail-in ballots, others that they don't. Some have only vote on election day, some have early voting, some mix thereof, some have drop boxes, so some don't. But what the SAVE Act would do, some have voter ID, most have voter ID, some don't. California, New York, Hawaii don't have voter ID, for example. So what the SAVE Act would do would require you to show that you are a U.S. citizen with your identification, and that would prove that you have the ability and right to vote in the elections using voter ID in federal elections. So it's a voter ID bill. I've done a lot of research on this, but the vast majority of Democrats, Republicans, all support voter ID, and it's a way to ensure that only U.S. citizens are voting in U.S. elections. And so we want to make sure that that happens, and it's so bipartisan. I remember one of my first hearings on oversight was about voter ID, and we had some folks coming in to testify from Texas that day, and come to find out that Republicans and Democrats vote in the same percentages of population as each other, blacks and whites, the same thing. Women actually vote in a smaller percentage than other populations, and so Hispanics are slightly lower in terms of percentage of the population, of their own population in voting. But everybody, over 75% of everyone, Hispanic, black, white, male, female, everybody wants voter ID. And so if you need an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes or to get a tattoo or to pay your rent or to get a job or get a mortgage, you certainly should have, and it's easy enough. It's not, I think, taking anyone's rights away to vote, because all of us are smart enough to get a voter ID. We know how to do that, and everyone's capable of doing it. I think just about everybody in the country has an ID and would be able to vote. So that's what it's about. It's now stuck in the Senate, and we'll see if it gets out. I have my doubts that it comes out of the Senate and becomes law.
All right. Well, Anne, thank you so much for joining. Sorry your line was a little mumbled, but I'm glad we were able to get to your question here. Up next here, we did receive a private message on Facebook with a question here asking, you recently joined the DOJ subcommittee. What does that mean for accountability and protecting taxpayer dollars?
Yes, since Marjorie Taylor Greene has retired from Congress, Representative Tim Burchett out of Tennessee is now the chairman of the DOJ subcommittee. And we joined the DOJ subcommittee because affordability crisis, cost of living is crushing American families. And one of the ways, in addition to lowering your taxes, but addressing the spending crisis in Washington is one way to do that. And the DOJ committee will be helping and assisting the federal government find waste, fraud, and abuse. It's not just the $19 billion or so in Minnesota. It's going to be significantly more in Texas. We have fraud in South Carolina too, by the way. But there's fraud everywhere. But every dollar wasted on bureaucracy, on bloated bureaucracy, is a dollar that could have gone back to your pocket. And to be a responsible government, we need to be efficient with your money, with your tax dollars, and not waste it. And so the spending problem that we have is one of the reasons that inflation has gotten so bad and cost of living has gotten so high. Of course, the government printing money. But in order for us to be responsible with spending, finding that waste, fraud, and abuse, cutting spending are ways that we can ensure we grow the economy, wages go up. For example, last year wages only went up 1% overall nationally. Certainly not enough with the cost of living, but that's just one small part to the bigger picture about addressing affordability in our country.
All right, thank you so much. Again, folks, get in line with your question. You still have time. You can press 0. Let's get to Jeff up next here in Berkeley. Jeff, thanks for joining our forum here. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I was wondering if your office could either help me or refer me to somebody who can with a situation with my VA disability benefits. Right now I'm receiving 40%, and I got a letter from the VA stating that back when I was on active duty, I took part in the separation, the voluntary separation that they had back in the mid-90s. So I received
94, wasn't it? 94-ish.
I believe it was.
Under Clinton?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So I received a check for $11,000, which now that's been a significant time that's passed, and I needed that money to support my family. Now they're claiming that they're going to reclaim that money and take it from my VA disability benefits.
For what reason?
They didn't really state in the letter, and unfortunately, the letter's at home and I'm at work.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So yes, we can absolutely help you. Our office can assist you with that. So like the caller earlier, if you can press 0 so we can get your name and contact information, date of birth, Social Security, all that, not right now, but with our operator, so we can get you a casework file open. For those of us that are calling the office and need assistance with a federal agency like this gentleman and the gal earlier, we'll have to have you and ask you to sign a disclosure to give us permission to contact the agencies on your behalf, but I will write a letter, we'll make phone calls to ensure that you all are taken care of, that your needs are taken care of and not being taken advantage of, and that if you've earned those dollars, you get those dollars, and that we expedite the fashion that we do this. And so if I don't get to you and you need help with a federal agency, just remember our office line is 843-352-7572. You can also go to mace.house.gov. But most of what we do is assisting constituents like this that need an appointment at the VA, need help with their benefits, need assistance with the IRS, those kinds of issues. Anything with any federal agency, we can assist you, and that is our job to do that. And it's the most meaningful part of our job. Yes, we are happy to assist and help expedite.
Absolutely. And Jeff, we'll get your information here. We'll be sure to follow up with you. But let's go ahead and get to another question here that we see from David in Charleston. David, thank you so much for joining us here. And looks like you're looking for an update on the budget. Go ahead.
Hey, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I missed the first few minutes of your town hall. I'm sorry, but I want to see if you could give us an update on the federal budget. Do they pass it, not pass it? And specifically, was the Department of Homeland Security included in that, or has it been separated out? And my main concern is the Coast Guard is under the Department of Homeland Security, which includes salaries for my daughter and my son-in-law who are in active service.
Yep. So yes, so we do have a budget, and even though DHS currently with the appropriations process, we haven't voted on it and it passed out of the House this year yet. Congress has already funded DHS for the next 4 years, and so they should be okay until we get this issue ironed out. Like, they should not lose pay, they should not lose their benefits. It's not going to be like it was in the fall, where I gave up my pay when our military wasn't going to get paid. I gave up my paycheck too. So it's not that kind of situation, because they are funded for the rest of the year, and I believe for the next 4 years. So while they're negotiating what happens after that, while they're, quote, technically shut down, in the long term it could have an effect, but I don't think this goes on for more than a few more weeks, and then it'll be figured out. And the thing that really gets me is these are our service members. We do have many Coast Guard here in South Carolina and all along the eastern seaboard. And in fact, the Coast Guard has been looking at the North Charleston and FLETC area to have or open one of its largest bases in its history here in the next 10 years or so. And so, we at FLETC, we also have a Border Patrol Training Academy. We're one of the areas that has that. Many people don't know that. I didn't know that until I became a member of Congress, and I saw and went to a graduation for Border Patrol agents. But if it goes on a long period of time, yeah, it could have an effect. But right now, I think this will be ironed out in the next few weeks. But they are fully funded and should be good to go for the remainder of the year and for the next few years.
Well, thank you so much for that update, David. Thanks for joining our conversation. We do have another question here, looks like from Jake in Mount Pleasant. He wants me to read his question over the air. He's asking, how are you supporting first responders and law enforcement here in South Carolina?
Right. No, thank you. Over the last 2 years, I was able to get over $2 million for law enforcement projects here in the Lowcountry. That would be supporting our first responders. That's one of our top priorities. We helped deliver approximately $1.8 million in a federal grant for Berkeley County first responders to fund 2 new firefighting vessels. That was I think that came out in October, and there was a development in the last couple of weeks, but it was for heavy-duty tow vehicles and firefighting vessels, actually in Berkeley County. Since 2024, we've secured, hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding for South Carolina for our district, over $400 million in the last 2 years, and over $2 million, about $2.3 million for law enforcement. One of the projects that I mentioned earlier in Berkeley County, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago, I secured a $500,000 $500,000 grant to Berkeley County for the sheriff's office to hire 3 new law enforcement officers over a 3-year period to cover that. We recently got and secured the City of Hanahan Police Department grant for officer safety. So our law enforcement grants and law enforcement work, putting first responders first, has been one of our top priorities for the office for a while now, and always.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And let's get to another one. I'm seeing another one that wants to be read over the air. Heather with us in Goose Creek is asking, families across the Lowcountry are being crushed by housing costs. What are you doing in Congress to make home ownership affordable again?
Well, we recently we did the Making Homeownership Affordable Again Act, because housing costs are out of control. I mentioned earlier that we are the fastest growing state in the country, and of course within South Carolina, one of the fastest growing areas in our state, and that means that affordability is a huge issue. Cost of living, housing costs are skyrocketing. I think someone told me the other day a 3-bedroom apartment in Mount Pleasant could cost you $5,000 a month. And I somehow, in my own property taxes the other day, within the county, got triggered, and it went to like a 6% millage instead of the homestead where you get 4%. I had to go in and fix it, but I had to pay the bill first because it was January 15th. And my bill was so excessive, I couldn't even believe what I had to pay in property taxes. And so because of that, I support all tax cuts. I've never voted for a tax increase. have always voted for tax cuts, and we voted on a measure this past summer that's the biggest tax cut in history. If you're a retiree and you're on Social Security, there are tax cuts and tax benefits for you, the working middle class with children, et cetera. Those tax cuts were made permanent last summer as well. But we want to make sure that that we address, outdated tax rules, that we're removing caps on capital gains for exclusions on home sales, eliminate capital gains taxes, et cetera. Particularly, we're talking about first-time home buyers. I have a bill that would allow you, for example, to be qualified for buying a home too, based on what's in your crypto account. If you have a Bitcoin as part of your account, because the younger generations are doing digital money. I don't have Bitcoin. I don't trade stocks either, by the way. But I've done all these things to help ensure that we can make owning a home and being able to afford to live in South Carolina the best it can be. And with that, I think we are done for the evening. I want to say one last thing. Please press 7 to join our newsletter, to sign up for it. We work very hard to get you news, information, and updates every weekend, and you can see what we're doing. I filed over 70 bills in the last year, hundreds of millions of dollars, almost $1 billion authorized and or appropriated for the district in the last year and a half, 2 years or so. We're working incredibly hard to make you proud, and serving the Low Country is the honor of my lifetime. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. And for those who are still listening, if your question was not answered, we do encourage you to leave a voicemail message once this call ends. Leave us your name, your best contact information, so that we have a fighting chance of reaching back out to you. Also, feel free to visit the rep's website. That's mace.house.gov. For any additional information you may be looking for. You can sign up for her e-newsletter as well while you're there if you did miss that opportunity tonight. Again, thank you all so much for joining us and spending your evening with us. Have a great rest of your night.
Please press 1 to leave.